What's up, everyone? I hope everybody's enjoying their sort of Convallaria gameplay and things are going great for them. I know I just recently made a pool video for Hasna. If you haven't seen it, obviously you're looking at the result. I have her. Go check it out. But in this video, I'd really like to go over her kit, what she does, and give you a little bit of a guide on how to build her and what you can do with her. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, with Hazna, let's take a look at her trait. Lingering Fragrance. Hazna has an immunity to blind, which is really not that great. Doesn't really matter because we don't really experience blinds in this game. In PvP, if you're fighting Miguel, maybe, you know, but there really isn't too many situations where you end up getting blinded. So that doesn't seem like it's a big deal right now. Hopefully later down the line it will be. But with that going any further, her magic attack is increased by a base 3%. She inflicts Hidden Fragrance on all enemies within 3 tiles around her at the end of their turn, which lasts for 1 turn. Enemies with Hidden Fragrance within 3 tiles around her have their attack and defense decreased by 8% and their chance of being critically hit increased by 15%. It's pretty decent. It's not bad. A decent debuff on the opponents. Now, as you see, as we go up in stars, that obviously it gets better and better with each rank. Primarily her magic attack stat goes up, the tiles in which her range of her Hidden Fragrance goes up, and then that debuff that goes on those opponents also increases from 8% up to 12%, and then at the final stage up to 15%. So, in its final form, her magic attack goes up to 15%. Her range for her Hidden Fragrance, just on herself and afflicting opponents, goes up to 5 tiles, lasts for 2 turns, and their attack and defense is decreased by 15%, and their critical hit chances increase by 15%, as in they receive a critical hit 15% more often by having this debuff on them. Really, really good. It's not bad. In my opinion, if you compare it to other traits that are out there on these characters that you might want to farm for, I'd say it's a low priority trait. I wouldn't go into Hazna and farm her shards and to try to increase this trait, unless you just absolutely love the character and you really, really want to do it. By all means, at that point, play the game how you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just my opinion. Drop it down in the comments. Let me know if you disagree or agree. Either way. Moving on to ranks. Let's take a look at it. Now, going into it, I've seen online people say, you know, get Hypnosis for that HP percentage. However, I like Battle Fever for what it could do potentially down the line, and I don't mind her having a little defense even though she's primarily not getting hit. But to have this in her armory is a big deal for me, as in I plan on using her in PvP. So that's what at rank 1, that's what I suggest. However, if you pick up Hypnosis at rank 1, there's nothing wrong with that. Moving up to rank 3, you have 2 options. You have Aroma Assault. Magic damage, single target attack, which does 150% damage and inflicts Hidden Fragrance on all enemies within 2 tiles of the target, lasting for 2 turns. So I tested this, I got it, I used a Castalia to get it, and it's not bad. It's good, consistent damage. It's a little sad that it's single target. If this ability was AoE, it would be bonkers and be phenomenal. But it's not, so it is what it is. With that said, I think Aroma Assault is primarily good for anybody who wants to use Hazna as a debuffer. So we'll get into that later though. What I would suggest you getting is Scented Trace. This is a passive ability. After attacking, it inflicts Hidden Fragrance on the target for 2 turns. When attacking enemies with Hidden Fragrance, the character recovers 2 energy. When defeating enemies with Hidden Fragrance, she additionally recovers 40% of her HP. It's phenomenal. It's great. You pretty much always want to have this on her. Really, really good. Must grab. Now at rank 5, we have 2 options. On the right, you got Rage, which you've seen this on a couple other characters. When hit by an active attack, the damage taken is decreased by 8%. After being attacked, the character gains damage up to, which is 20% buff, for 3 turns. Not terrible. There's nothing wrong with it if you prefer it. However, I would suggest getting Softest Flowers. I love how these names have changed with the translation. But Softest Flowers. When hit by an active attack from the enemy with Hidden Fragrance, the damage taken is decreased by 30%. That's my suggestion. If you don't like it, there's nothing wrong with that. You can go the other option. That's just what I'd tell you to do. Now at rank 7, you get access to Assault. We've seen this on other characters like Cole. Really good ability. Nothing wrong with it. However, my suggestion is Scent Tracker. It's a passive. At the start of the turn, if there are enemies within With Hidden Fragrance within 4 turns of the character, she gains crit 2 and a maximum range of 1 and allows moving 2 tiles after landing a critical hit. Really good passive. So basically anytime there's anybody nearby with that Hidden Fragrance, her crit rate goes up, period dot, by 30%. She increases her maximum range by 1. Awesome. And then after she attacks, she gets to move again to kind of move off of them and stay away, which is how I like to play Hasna. I like to keep her moving around, let her kind of snipe enemies, hit them hard, and kind of stay at a distance. Really, really good. Fantastic stuff right there. I would suggest that. Now at rank 9, you have access to Hypnotic Attack. Its basic attack deals 80% magical damage and grants 30% chance of inflicting sleep for 1 turn. I think it's too low of a percentage to only last for 1 turn. It just isn't great. I just don't really see much utility in this ability. It needs to be buffed before it really has great purpose in my mind. So with that said, I would suggest Murderous Phantom. It's a basic attack, single target attack. It deals 80% of her magical damage. If she's adjacent to a target with Hidden Fragrance, she'll perform an additional attack dealing 50% of her magic attack as physical damage, which is guaranteed to be a critical hit. Pretty great. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good, powerful basic attack. I like it a lot, and I've enjoyed using it. Now, at rank 11, you get access to Life Devourer, which is a single target attack with 150% magic damage. After attacking, you gain 45% of the damage you dealt as life steal, which you get life back on Hazna. I can see that being fun and useful, but I don't think it takes precedence over everything else. So ultimately, I would not suggest getting this. It's relatively useless in my mind when you're looking at penetrating, which is the other option. This is a magic attack damage, single target. Hazna deals 140% damage. The damage dealt is increased by 170 against enemies with Hidden Fragrance, which we pretty much all want them to have all the time. Before attacking, her crit and crit damage are increased by an additional 15%. This is a phenomenal ability with no cooldown and costs 4 energy, which she's going to be getting back 2 energy every time she hits somebody with Hidden Fragrance, period dot anyways. Really, really good. Highly suggest rolling with this. There's really not going to be too many situations where you're not going to want this penetrating on all the time. With that said, let's take a look at her weapon choices. Now, I've used a couple of different weapons on Hazna and played in quite a few rounds with her. I really like the Focus one. I like the extra range. I like what it gives. I think it's fantastic. And so for me, if it's not the best in slot, it's right up there tied as best in slot. I found myself going to it and preferring it over the other options. However, the other option that I would argue is very good is Starry Sky Heritage. Now, I found myself wishing I had that little bit of extra range each time I run this, but it's very solid and is a good weapon in Hazna either way. So if you have either one of those options, I think you're pretty set and you're doing a great job. Of course, you've got Cornucopia and a couple other things you can run. I would suggest right here the Gazing Orb. If you don't have access to any legendaries, Gazing Orb is phenomenal. 10% damage when performing a single target attack. That's just period dot. And then of course you can enhance that, which I could have already done, but all the way up to 15%. That's a great ability. That's a great item. There's nothing wrong with that. However, my opinion is Starry Sky Heritage tied with Focus 1. 2 really good items. It just comes down to preference at that point. Now, for trinkets, I like the Evergreen Pendant. I think this thing is sleeper OP. When you have the Resonance that I'm using on her, which is the lifesteal at 15% and the base 5% damage increase, every time she hits, even if it's multi-hits, whatever, you're getting life back. And each time you're getting life back, you're getting a buff. Really, really good. Fantastic. We're increasing crit, attack, defense, you name it. You want to keep her buffed up, you want to keep her strong. I think this thing is ridiculously good, and that's what I would suggest. And then for the Terror Whisper, I love Verdict of Justice. Now this is her as a damage dealer. This gives you a flat 15% crit rate, and then if you're lucky enough to get that 4th slot rolled correctly, you get another 15% crit damage, which I highly suggest you try to do. Great tarot for her, really works for her as a damage dealer. And as you can see down here in the bottom, this is how I arrange my skills. So that Murderous Phantom, Softest Flowers is a reaction, Scent Tracker is a passive, Synod Trace is a passive, and then coming in with penetrating, sorry, as our ability that we're using to get the damage off. This is how I build her as a damage dealer. Now, just a quick shout out to one of my followers here, and that's Mateo. He made a suggestion in the comments, and he's absolutely right. And when he said so, I took a look at it, and that running Hasna as a debuffer. Now, if you run Hasna as a debuffer, it does a lot for your party, and I tested it and checked it out, and I did enjoy it. I like it. When you're looking at debuffers, you don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of options, and Hasna comes in strong. Now, if you're running her as a debuffer, once again, I'd suggest that focus one. Keep her in. Not only would she be a debuffer, she can be a second damage dealer. Now, he suggested on the trinket that you use Disaster Bottle. That's fantastic. So basically, anytime you're throwing out, you're inflicting that hidden fragrance on your opponents, as well as another debuff from the Disaster Bottle, which is just what you need for her to proc her abilities and be able to get that debuff on those opponents and hit hard. So, really, really good information there. And then, of course, for your Terror Whisperer, she's running as a debuffer. You can keep it the same, you can change it whatever you want, but I'd suggest that. The only thing is her as a debuffer I would suggest is that you might not want penetrating all the time. Now, if you're going into a game and it's PvE, PvP, whatever you're doing, PvE, let's just assume, and you're fighting one target, penetrating, hands down, is your best option. Period. Dot. However, if you're fighting a crowd or a mob, Aroma Assault comes in strong because you're hitting, you're spreading that damage out, that debuff out to multiple targets per hit, and you're doing good damage at 150% each time too. It's pretty daggum nice. It's phenomenal. It's a little bit niche, but it comes in strong in that situation. However, if you're fighting a boss or single target, or you're worried about a single target in general, penetrating comes in strong. Because each time you're using it and you hit, you're giving that hidden fragrance regardless, as long as you have to pass it up right here, Synod Trace, and so you're just going to do gnarly damage over time. And she comes in strong as not only a debuffer, but damage dealer. So, in essence, that is my opinion on Hasna. That is what I would suggest building her. I'm going to come out with a team comp video. I'm going to drop that here very soon as well. If you have anything you want to throw on it, maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, regardless, let's talk about it. Let's mention it down in the comments. Get at me. I love your feedback. I love to get back at you and talk about the game. This game's been a ton of fun. Hasna's been a ton of fun. If you're still on the fence about pulling her, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're saving up for stronger characters, there's nothing wrong with that. Play the game how you want to. Have fun. She will not disappoint if you do pull on her. She does her job and she does it well. With that said, I wish you guys all the best. Good luck in your gameplay in Sword of Convallaria. Catch you later. Bye.